Welcome to the Slade Ham experiment. I'm your host, Slade Ham. Lots to talk about this episode. My mind's a Twitter, a buzz, thinking about things. I had something get kicked off at TikTok. We'll talk about that. I did a podcast with a friend of mine that brought all sorts of things up to the surface. So I want to think about that. Lots and lots to do. But first, I'm obligated to tell you to go watch my special. If you haven't done it, if you're new here, if you stumbled in, I got a brand new hour. It's free. Just go punch the little button, like it, tell a friend if you do it, if you enjoy it. Do you see how awkward this is for me to have to sit here and beg people? You know what I mean? I didn't have to go beg all 25,000 people. They showed up, but if you're here and you haven't seen it, this is me humbly asking you to go watch my special. Let's do an episode. I was on TikTok briefly. I'm still on there. But this stupid lottery ticket game thing that is social media, I'm not going to bitch about the same stuff over and over and over again. However, I'm on there. I post a story. They tell me you try and get, this is how social works. You ask the people who are doing it right. Well, what's working? How's this work? How's this go? And they tell you, here's the rules. Well, it used to be this, and now it's this. We think it's this, and this is what we came up with. So you should try this. And I go, well, TikTok's that stupid short form stuff, right? They go, well, it used to be. Now it's longer. Okay, well, what's that mean? All right, I'll post some longer stuff. I have this story from the old Whiskey Brothers comedy special. It's about an 8-minute story about me getting in a fight with a midget. Now, I understand that word is maybe not is not acceptable in today's vernacular. I don't tell the joke anymore. I think the word's hysterical. I still do use it. In a couple of years, this may all come back to bite me. But I don't do the joke on stage anymore. In the recorded version of the joke, I do say the word 22 times. I do understand. But it's a really good story. And it's really well told. And it's really well filmed. And I pop it on TikTok, and like it should have done, it gets some traction. It goes a little viral. I wake up the next morning. It's got a red flag on it. We've gotten a complaint. We muted your video. Would you like to appeal? Well, yes, I'd like to appeal. This is a damn good story. I appeal. Instantly a response comes back. We've looked at your thing, and there's no problem. Blah, blah, blah. A couple hours later, it's pulled completely for hate speech and violence and all this other stuff. Now, I don't really care. It was kind of frustrating that it was an old joke that got traction to begin with. But what they tell me, everybody says it. Hey, man, it's like fishing. This social media game, it's like fishing, man. You like to fish. You're a Southeast Texas guy. You like to. I'm not doing an impression of anybody in particular. This is everybody all the time. Man, you just gotta fish, man. You just gotta try. You never know when you're gonna bite. You never know what's gonna hit. You never really know, man. You just gotta get out there and put your line in the water, put your best bait on the water. Hope the fish are biting that day. It's the same thing as you going fishing. Okay, I see your metaphor to an extent. You got to put the right bait in the water. You got to find the right water. There's a lot of things you got to do that do equate to fishing. But I used to fish a lot. I still do. Fishing to me is joyous. I like the patience required. There were things my grandfather taught me. This is what's different from social media. Things my grandfather taught me apply to fishing. If I go out at a certain time of year and I put a certain bait on a certain line with a certain hook, a certain depth, and I fish certain water, I'm going to catch fish. That's how you catch speckled trout. You go out to one of the piers, you do it at night, you put some lights out, you put a little shrimp live on the end of a little bobber, you throw it out there about 3 feet down, speck's going to hit this all day long. I can count on that. My grandpa used to catch fish that way. And if I go out to that same dock at the same time of night, at the same time of year, excluding some El Nino stuff that I don't really know anything about or some weather patterns that kind of freaked out, for the most part, the same fish biting the same bait in the same conditions every single year. Now, sometimes fishing ain't even about the fishing, right? I used to go night fishing a lot. If you've ever been out, this is a Gulf Coast thing for me. I always go out to the, now Surfside, but it used to be Boulevard Peninsula, Crystal Beach, that area. You go out at night, and you could fish right there on the beach. You light a little campfire, you wade out to about your waist, whoosh, throw that line out, walk back to the beach, plant your pole. It's pretty fun. It's cool. The night sky over the ocean is one of my favorite things in the world. I don't know how to explain it. If you don't live on the coast, you haven't spent time on beaches at night, but where there's very little light pollution. When you look away from the campfire long enough to let your eyes adjust, it feels like you're inside. The water's there, but the moon and the stars are bouncing off of that, and it sincerely feels like a ceiling, like you could run your fingers through the starlight. And I've been out there at night. I know there's dark stuff in the water with me. I've been out there with a stringer of, because you catch fish and you tie them to a stringer on your waist and you just keep fishing. Nobody wants to walk all the way back to shore. So you got fish, basically dead fish hanging kind of live and twitching, injured fish hanging off your hip in the water. A shark's going to hit you occasionally. And I've had that hip pull where you get jerked a little bit. Just let you know you're in the water with them. But you come back to that campfire, that little beach fire. You throw those fish in some aluminum foil with some butter and some salt. Whew. Or some Tony Sashery shit. Yeah, you don't get that with social media. As with fishing, even if I don't catch anything, it's fun. Speaking of trying to make it work online, man, the whole process, we talked, it can drive you nuts. But one of the things I've discovered is how to be honest with myself. Like, you got to ask yourself some hard questions, right? One of the questions I ask all the time now are what role am I playing in the conditions that I don't like? That's a tough one. Of what's wrong, of all the things that are not wrong, how much of that's me? It's a difficult question to ask yourself. It's also difficult to ask yourself if you're not getting the attention you want, if it's possible that the work you're doing is not good enough. Yeah, that's a kick in the sternum, ain't it? That's a Spartan kick straight out of 300 or Assassin's Creed Odyssey, right to your chest bone. Knocks the wind out of you when you stop and ask yourself that. That's when I think of all these people. I used to be these people where I still do to some extent. You sit around lamenting, why is no one noticing? Why am I not getting this attention? Why? And then you look at the cell phone clips you're posting online. Well, it looks like everything else. It's as boring as everything else. It's just vanilla. And maybe that's why people aren't flocking to my doorstep. Maybe that the Rolling Stones sell out NRG Stadium and put 90,000 people in there to watch 80-year-old men play electric guitars, because those 80-year-old men play electric guitars and write songs and put on a show that trumps anything else you can see. That's why people are paying $1,000 a ticket to go watch those old men play. That tour kicked off last night. It's going to make buku money. And why? Because it's great art. That's why. So when you're just doing basic shit and you're not, and you're getting basic results, you can't really be upset about it. That's what I keep telling myself, right? Art is hard. Conceptually, the concept of making a living artistically is, the odds are against you, right? I've got to come up with something Every day I got to think of something in my brain and then figure out a way to make it real and hope that I'm connecting on some emotion that I can psychically transmit across whatever medium it is and get that person to feel what I feel in a way that they go, this guy has put some thought into life and I want to hear more. Because that's what comedy is, right? That's why you put shows together to go, hey, this is what I see funny with the world. Let me see if I can say it in a way that you go, oh yeah, me too. That's what this is. My friend Jordan Brady, director extraordinaire, he hosts a podcast called Respect the Process. I don't know if he's done an episode on this yet or not, but he talks about it a lot. And I talk about it a lot. I think about it a lot. Jordan the other day posted something saying that if you want to get something done, if you want to finish a project, you have to set a deadline. Have to. And I realized that that's my MO. That's when I look back at these last couple of projects. I don't know that I was doing it intentionally up until recently, but every time I set a deadline, we did it with Andy's show, we did it with my special, with the Kickstarter, with these improv shows. Forcing yourself to work against a deadline has an extraordinary amount of power. It is, if you have some self-esteem and you have some self-respect and you like doing what you say you're going to do, which is all of us who are, I think, trying to be decent people. We want to adhere to our word. I said I was going to do it. I did it. Look, you can count on me. When we pick a date and say something will be done by then, and then we publicly state that, everything changes. Everything goes from this nebulous, what if, I wonder, blah, 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 to I got to ship this and it better be great. Those deadlines are absolutely everything. My buddy, Jeff Canada, good friend, I was on his podcast this week. It'll come out sometime around soon. You can hear the other half of this conversation. But Jeff was saying that he's addicted to the live performance part of what he does. He's a Texas country artist. That it's the performance side, and he could give up writing songs if he could keep the performance element. And I won't be so crazy as to tell you I would pick one over the other, but I can say that for me, that was like pop my brain, because the reason I think art is because there's something in here that you want to get out, to do what I was just talking about, to try to emotionally, psychically convey this thing and have other people go, oh yeah, me too. And that's our way of connecting, I think. So if you took that away, my ability to process and get out what I'm thinking, I would be lost way before I would be lost without the stage. That's what this is. That's what book writing is. That's why the process has to be so important. That's why the audience and the response cannot be, because that process is what's important. For me, writing, right? When I write prose, that last book, is it great? I don't know. It's good. The stories are fun. The first book I wrote, it was the first thing I ever wrote. But what's awesome about it, what's kind of awesome about even something like this, is that it forces you to think something through and decide on the parts that were important, and then to write it down. And now there's an official version. There's this thing that'll allow you to stop thinking about all this stuff for a little bit. No, I know what happened. I don't have to fall asleep thinking about it every single night. In fact, that is what is prompting my entire new comedy special. What's got me thinking about, it's called the Psycho Survival Tour. It's all about being in a crazy relationship and dealing with how we as humans deal with crazy people, or survival in general. That's what the show is honing in on. It's made me think about how we as people handle those darker urges. As I'm talking about this ex who had, if you think about the governor on a car, right? Some vehicles, you floor it, whatever, it cuts you off, at a certain speed. If you're driving a government vehicle, an airport shuttle or something, you can't go over 55 or 80 or whatever it's trapped on. And we as people have governors in our own heads. We all have very little control over what thoughts force their way into the room, right? I don't get to decide what random thing leaps into my head. What I have control over is whether or not I act on it, right? I went on a fishing trip long time ago. I forget how big this boat was. In my head, it was 100 feet. That's a yacht. So 60 feet. This boat was giant. Slept a lot of people. We're on our way out there. We get all the way out into the deep water. And overnight, everybody's got to take a shift, manning the bridge. I got 2 hours on the bridge. And at one point, I had to pee. I walk back. I'm looking over the edge because it's just the back railing of this boat. And it's on autopilot. It's cruising out doing 6 knots. We're at 9 hours into the Gulf of Mexico. It's pitch black. It's 2 a.m. I'm the only one awake. And I'm standing next to that railing. And it only comes up to your knees. And I remember the rush of thoughts. Like, what if? What if we hit a bump or a wave and I just over the back of that boat? There was nothing stopping it from happening. The lights were there. You could see the water. It had that. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, but with a light under the boat, you can just imagine the dark depths down there. And your brain starts going to some crazy places. Not just what if I fell, right? But sometimes that thought will go, what if you jumped? You don't ask for that thought. You didn't think about jumping. There's no part of you that was ever going to jump off the back of that boat, right? But the thought, in some weird quantum popping sort of way, kicks its way into the room. Hey, I'm here. Think this for a second. That was scary. Get that off my head. And I back up from the edge of the boat. I go upstairs. I'll hold it. I'll just wait till someone else wakes up, and then I'll do this more properly. But those thoughts, they creep into our heads. And some people don't step away from the edges quickly. Some people sit in it. Some people stare at the sun, man. My ex didn't have a filter at all. If she thought it, the behavior happened. That's the only way I know how to put it. There was just simple thought execution. He's making me mad. I should hit him. And before anything any filter or airlock could slam down and stop it from happening, her hand was in the air. Ka-dunk! And this would happen. I remember one night, the closest I came to losing it too, right? To try, because you want to, in your head, when you're up against something you don't know how to beat, craziness, right? Someone who's willing to go further than you are. You tell yourself, well, prison rules, right? I'll just hit him first. Not like I'm going to hit her, but like I'll strike first. I'll be bigger, crazier, louder. This is me in my early 20s. We got in an argument one night. We were at this apartment complex at a party. A bunch of wait staff. Everybody was waiting tables back in the day. And she and I were arguing, and we end up down in the parking lot, and it's loud. I mean, it's one of those midnight parking lot screaming, yelling matches. And she starts hitting my car, like, with her hand. She's just, like, punching it. And I was like, you can't. I was so timid. You punch my car, then I'll punch your car. Like, I could be crazy too, right? So she's hitting my car, and she's denting it all on the side. And it's, my poor car's been through hell at this point. So her truck was parked right here, and I go, thunk, and I just slapped it. Not like hard, like thunk. Like, yeah, I'm crazy too. That was all it's very similar to most heckler interactions where you say something, they say something to you and you shoot them down, and then they think that they had you because they had that one thing and they don't understand how absolutely 100% mismatched they are. That's what this was. I wasn't on this level of crazy. She'd been training her life for crazy stuff like this. When I thunked that car, that was all the permission she needed to one-up me. If this, then you did that. Well, watch this, bitch. She jumped behind the wheel of her truck. She was driving I think it was a Ford Ranger. It was kind of elevated though, but it wasn't a big truck. It was a small truck on big wheels. And she backs up. My car was parked in the parking lot. And then there's one of those little speed bumps. And then there's a curb. And then there's a tree. Well, she backed up far enough to push my car through all of them. Ka-dunk, over the bump, over the curb, into the tree. And then she backs up and she hits it again. And she backs up and she hits it again. And now I'm all sunk in at this point. We're already into crazy land. So I remember I jumped into the back of her truck because I thought I could get to her and open the door and make her stop. And it's all logic leaves the room when you're confronted with something like this. No part of me should have been in a car ramming fight with the person I supposedly loved. Certainly no part of me should have been in the back of her truck, the bed, as she starts doing donuts, trying to get me out of the back. And eventually, a top-heavy Ford Ranger will, if the physics hold up, and they did, tip over with me in the back. And I remember, time really does. I've had this happen multiple times in my life. Stop. Like full-blown Quicksilver in the X-Men, the Flash, everything's in slow motion. Stop. It happened when I got in a wreck when I was in the 7th grade, and I watched the car spin 3 or 4 times around, and I remember reading every sign as we spun. So as this truck flips, it happened slowly enough that I was able to grab one end of the bed and vault out as it tipped. And she laid there like a turtle on its back in the truck, and all the people at the party were there. And I left. And that should have been when I left the relationship. It wasn't. This will all be in the show. Not that story, but the relationship and what was going through my mind and why we don't leave in situations like that. But you got to find a person in your life, anybody you deal with in your life. You should know where their governor tops out at. You should know what they do under pressure. You should know how they react when things get tense or they get mad or the emotions get to simmering. Because sometimes they're a person who knows how to have a rational human conversation that solves the problem. And sometimes they're a chick who'll punch a cop. What's left in this episode? I only want to talk about more noise, and I promise to do it positively. I've got a new approach to some things. We all know I'm a adherent to a lot of Stoic philosophy, controlling things that you can control and not having expectations of the things that you cannot control. One of the things that goes on daily where I live, I'm in East Downtown in Houston, the proximity to train tracks. While I'm not close, I am not far. They are audible. When they add a train track going the opposite direction, so now there are 3 train tracks within a 1 block spot on this one particular road. So there's always a train. Always horns honking. They do it all through the night. They do it all through the day. It's almost impossible to listen to an episode of this without somewhere in the background hearing a train horn. And I used to get mad at them. I used to be angry. I used to go after the trains and scream, and I couldn't do anything. But I'd go so far, I'd even look it up. How do you email Union Pacific to bitch? There's nothing you could do. And I start to feel this way about leaf blowers because they are the single most unnecessary tool. They say more about your weak, soft body, you pathetic human being who can't rake a leaf. You're a landscaper, you own a business, you do people's lawns, this is all about speed. Okay, cool, maybe it is, but not at the cost of everyone else's hearing and probably your own, because the noise that comes from them, the inefficiency that comes from them, the amount of pollution that comes from everything about a leaf blower is juice unworthy of the squeeze, or a squeeze unworthy of the juice, or the point is that these things suck, and if you use them, I want to take it and I want to thunk you in the skull with it. That's the truth. I really do. I thunk till it breaks and you're tired and beat up and sad. That's what I want to do, but I don't, because I got that governor we talked about. So what I do is I just put you in a bucket of stuff I really can't do anything about. That's not going to get my emotional energy. That I can come on and kvetch about for a minute like I will tonight and then move on with my life, because the solution isn't to go destroy all the leaf blowers. I just can't. I wish that was my mission. I wish I was a leaf blower destroying person. I wish that every day I got to wake up and I had a wood chipper that's twice as loud as the leaf blowers. And I throw the leaf blowers in the wood chipper and they all out the back. And somehow I feel good about myself. That's not what I do. What I got instead are silicone earplugs. And I put them in, and oddly the noise goes away. And it doesn't really affect my sleep, and they're comfortable, and it solves the problem without me having to go solve the problem. Because like I told my friend Jeff on his podcast, my job is to cross the swamp, not to fight all the alligators. That's not what we're here for. We're not here in any of these instances to do all of these things and right all these injustices and fight all these fights and demolish every enemy and do all this stuff. We're here to be kind to one another and enjoy ourselves and alleviate suffering when we can, but also within ourselves. Sometimes you got to grab that oxygen mask, and it's okay to live a good life. And it's okay to put earbuds in or silicone if it solves the leaf blower problem better than me having to go yell at the guy who's been blowing leaves so long that his hearing doesn't even work anymore, and my yelling isn't even going to have an effect on it. Thanks for watching. This is the Slade Ham Experiment. I am around every single week. New episodes come out every single week. New clips come out almost every single day. I'm on the road. I'm on tour. If there's a venue near you or a city you want me to play, send me a message. Let's put something together. I'll work with you to put a street team together. Let's get a show in your area. I'm excited. I got stuff coming out. I got stuff I'm working on. My friends are doing stuff. Life is altogether good. And this is the only place to see it all. So hit the subscribe button, stick around, and I'll see you on another episode soon.